Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to kindly take your seats? We are starting our proceeding. Governor State Bank, along with His Excellencies, delegates of IFSB Council, is arriving at the venue. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Jameel Ahmad, along with His Excellencies, Head of Delegates of IFSB Council, have arrived at the venue. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. His Excellencies, Heads of Delegates of IFSB Council, Honorable Foreign Delegates, Secretary General IFSB, distinguished speakers, bank CEOs, member of Sharia Advisory Committee of State Bank of Pakistan, chairman and other Sharia scholars of the Sharia boards of the banks, our listeners through electronic and social media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good evening. On behalf of the Governor State Bank of Pakistan, who is also currently the chairman of IFSB Council, I am honored to welcome you at 15th public lecture of IFSB. We start our proceeding with recitation from Holy Quran. I would request Mr. Shabi to come for the recitation of Holy Quran. Mr. Shabi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم صدق الله العظيم. This was chapter 102 of Holy Quran. Translation. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. O mankind, the mutual rivalry for piling up of worldly things diverts you until you visit the graves. No, you shall come to know, again know, you shall come to know. No, if you knew with a sure knowledge the end result of piling up, you would not have been occupied yourselves in worldly things. Verily, you shall see the blazing fire, and again you shall see it with certainty of sight. Then on that day, you shall definitely be asked about the pleasures and delights you indulge in this life. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Shabir. My name is Samar and I'm MC for today's this program. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a fortunate day for Pakistan, as we have got an ocean of intellect in this room. Over a dozen of countries, from over a dozen of countries, more than 40 foreign delegates have come to Pakistan. Pakistan and Islamabad welcome you with open arms, and State Bank receives you with warm hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have got two public lectures. First, role of Islamic finance in actualizing the Sustainable Development Goals. And the topic of second lecture is Islamic finance and sustainability, Pakistan's case. Before I request the first speaker, may I request Dr. Bello Lawal, Secretary General IFSB, for his opening remarks. Dr. Bello does not need any formal introduction. Over to you, Dr. Bello.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Your Excellency, Mr. Jamil Ahmad, Governor, State Bank of Pakistan and Chairman of the IFSB's Council 2022. Her Excellency, Mrs. Sima Kamil, the Deputy Governor, State Bank of Pakistan, Your Excellencies, honorable members of the IFSB Council here present, honorable members of the IFSB from full associate and observer members here present, distinguished speakers, respected participants and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good evening to all of you. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 15th public lecture on financial policy and stability. And we sincerely thank you for your attendance and presence today. The lecture is a collaboration between the Islamic Financial Services Board, IFSB, and the State Bank of Pakistan, who happens to be one of the founding full and council member of the IFSB. The intention to have this public lecture is to have the leaders and experts inside on the topic of sustainable development goals and Islamic finance philosophy, which is a trending topic in recent years, and especially during and post the pandemic period. IFSB has had several public lectures before, and today's public lecture is a very special one, not only because of the topic, but because of the lecturers that we have for today's public lecture. The lecturers that we have today to deliver the two topics, as highlighted by Mr. Said Samar, the Executive Director of the State Bank of Pakistan, are actually leaders, scholars, experts that have intensive and extensive experience, knowledge, as well as commitment to the delivery of the SDGs in their respective individual capacity as well as in their institutions. We have Dr. Sami Suelim, who is a well-known scholar, an economist, an expert, who is the Acting Director General of Islamic Development Banking Institute, and he is advisor to the Islamic Banking Group. We also have for the second lecture, Mr. Imran Siddiqui, who is the president of the Mizan Bank. We are really honored to have somebody with that experience as a founding member of Mizan Bank to be here to deliver this lecture. I think the topic has been done a very, very fair treatment by the State Bank of Pakistan to have decided and agreed to have these honorable experts as our lecturers for today's public lecture. Indeed, our special and sincere thanks and appreciation goes to, of course, His Excellency, Mr. Jamil Ahmad, the Governor of State Bank of Pakistan and Chairman of the IFSB Council, and his team for graciously hosting this public lecture and other events alongside the 41st IFSB Council meeting in this beautiful city of Islamabad. Your Excellency, you and your team, on behalf of the IFSB members, we are sincerely grateful. Thank you for the excellent arrangement, and thank you for graciously hosting the IFSB 41st Council and Side event. I will also like to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable IFSB Council members here present who traveled so far to be here with us to attend the IFSB Council meeting that will be held tomorrow and to participate in today's public lecture and to engage with other IFSB members present to share their experiences and thoughts. And of course, I would also like to welcome and thank the representatives of IFSB member organizations for attending today's meeting, even though they are not council members. We are sincerely grateful to all of you. The IFSB, as you may be aware, initiated this public lecture on financial policy and stability way back in 2007, with the aim to promote the sharing of knowledge and experiences by acclaimed personalities in the world of financial services, particularly who have made significant contributions in their careers, whether at national, global, or regional levels. While the topic of today's public lecture is actually a global concern, which also has been discussed in many fora, including that of the World Bank, the IMF, the Islamic Development Bank, the United Nations, the Asian Development Bank agendas, and other multinational organizations at a very high level discussions and in their respective activities, particularly on how to leverage on Islamic finance and how we can be able to deliver the SDGs is the topic of today's that we'll be having this opportunity to share our thoughts with the lecturers as well. Distinguished delegates and participants, SDGs has been part of the fundamental philosophy of Islamic finance. It is embedded in its values and principles. Hence, Islamic finance operations and intentions are in line with the spirit of SDGs. And as far as Maqasid Sharia is concerned, the SDGs have a natural fit to Islamic finance. Globally, the United Nations estimates that the funding needed to address the SDGs will be between 5 to 7 trillion US dollars by 2030. However, most jurisdictions are facing a significant challenge because of the funding gap in achieving the SDGs. With its intrinsic principles, Islamic finance is well positioned to support these needs and enable jurisdictions to diversify their funding sources in order to close this funding gap. While the Islamic financial service industry continues to expand globally, the total Islamic financial services industry's asset exceeding more than 3 trillion US dollars as at end of 2021, there is still a significant untapped potential of Islamic finance. Hence, Islamic finance, not only through its philosophical underpinnings, but also by unique nature and variety of contract types that we have, present a significant opportunity to be channeled towards the achievements of the SDGs in many jurisdictions. The fulfillment of this potential also requires the development of robust enabling environment, reinforcing financial stability along with greater product innovation and effective mobilization of Islamic finance instrument to meet the specific funding goals using both traditional and digital platforms that we find ourselves today. Islamic social finance provide the most natural fit to address all the sustainable development goals that we expect to deliver by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable speakers, the speakers that we have today in today's public lecture, that is the 15th IFSB public lecture, have made significant contributions to the financial services system at international and national levels. We are really fortunate to have you, and we look forward to you sharing your thoughts, which will allow us to learn from your experiences and to enlighten us more on the challenges facing the Islamic financial services industry in delivering the sustainable development goals. Understanding definitely the trend and the current status of the industry will also allow us to drive the Islamic finance to a new height and to open its door to a new opportunities. And with the accelerated digitalization, with the emerging opportunities and innovation in Islamic finance, we at the IFSB are very, very confident that the SDGs can be achieved more using Islamic finance products and services rather than the conventional ones. I would like to finally, once again, thank the State Bank of Pakistan for hosting this event alongside the 41st Council meeting. And a special thanks goes to all the IFSB members here present and to our distinguished lecturers and our colleagues in the SBP for their tireless effort and support with the excellent arrangement and facilities to conduct today's IFSB public lecture and other events. Yesterday marked the first day of the side event where we have capacity building program for the market players here hosted by the State Bank of Pakistan. We are really grateful to have a very big turnout and the engagement was excellent. We have two sessions, one group focusing for Islamic banking, the second group focusing on Islamic capital market and takaful. We are sincerely grateful that today, this morning, we also continue with another event where we have the IFSB member and industry engagement session. And we appreciated your feedback during the industry engagement session. We really thank you, and we are committed to take on board all the comments and the remarks and the feedback that you have given us in order to continue to improve and deliver and meet in order to meet your expectations. On that note, I wish us a very productive deliberations and discussions in today's public lecture. And I once again thank you, Your Excellency, our Council Chairman. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Dr. Bello. You have leveled the ground, and now it's time to sow the seeds of thought. And for that, I'm requesting our first distinguished speaker, Dr. Sami Ibrahim Al-Suwalam. He's Director General, Islamic Development Bank Institute and Chief Economist, Islamic Development Bank Group. Before joining this institute, Dr. Sami has worked in number of institutions in various jurisdictions. He has authored several books and papers on Islamic economics and finance. He has done his PhD from Washington University, St. Louis, Missouri. Over to you for the next 30 minutes, Dr. Ibrahim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I'm greatly honored to be in Islamabad today, joining this August gathering of senior leaders of our Islamic financial industry, as well as in our member countries. I would like to start by thanking the State Bank of Pakistan for hosting this meeting for the IFSB Council. as well as hosting the other associated activities that Dr. Bello just alluded to. I would like also to thank my colleagues at the IFSB for their dedication, untired effort to lead the development of the regulatory systems of the Islamic financial industry. I think there have been so many talks and lectures on how Islamic finance is related to the sustainable development goals. I hope I will not be repeating many of these. So let me get into the main points that I would like to highlight today. Let me start with the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أحب العمل إلى الله أدومه وإن قل. The most preferred to Allah of good deeds are regular and consistent ones, no matter how small they are. This statement succinctly summarizes the Islamic approach to development. Steady and consistent progress rather than quick and abrupt growth. Haste makes waste, as the saying goes. Sustaining economic progress requires sustaining resources and therefore economizing on them. But we live in a finite world and resources eventually are depletable. So how to economize on resources? We cannot economize by simply reducing the utilization of these resources. Instead, we should use them to build and innovate new and environmentally better resources that outlive the existing ones, and then use the new resources to build and explore yet additional and better ones to outlive them, and so on. In other words, sustainable development requires continuous efforts to build and discover resources for the future. Although no single resource can live forever, this strategy helps to consistently create sustainable resources. And what is the most important resource on earth? Human beings. Human capital is the most valuable asset in the economy. And the best way, therefore, to sustain resources is to invest in human beings. This is why health and education are the most valuable long-term investments. One important reason we face environmental crises is that we are taught in the university that the primary objective of economic behavior is consumption, or at least that's what I was taught when I was studying economics. If you pick an economics textbook, you will find that the objective of the economic man is to maximize the utility of consumption. This is very different from the objective of sustaining resources. Only under very narrow and stringent conditions that the two perspectives might converge and lead to the same outcome. In a rich and complex world like the one where we live, the two perspectives diverge much more often than they converge. It is essential, therefore, to integrate sustainable development into mainstream economics. Believe it or not, there are today mainstream textbooks and mainstream Nobel laureates, I would say, that would question the size or the extent of the climate change problem, and therefore they would undermine the threats it poses to our existence. So the battle is not over yet. If the youth learn this in school, our battle against climate change will be a losing one. To win the battle, we must win the new generation who in a few years will be leaders in their communities and therefore be able to make a lasting impact in their communities. Economic textbooks, therefore, should make sustainable progress the primary objective of the economic man rather than selfish short-term consumption. And this brings us to Islamic finance. Islamic finance integrates moral values, actually universal moral values, with economic activities. This integration is essential to achieve sustainable development and overcome the root causes behind the climate crisis the world is facing today. To see this, we should note that the climate crisis has two dimensions: time dimension and space dimension. The time dimension extends over generations. The narrow perspective of prioritizing the present over the future encourages us to forget about the future and enjoy the current moment. When each generation follows the same strategy, it is almost certain that humanity will not survive the climate crisis. This is where moral values come to play. If we care enough about future generations, then we must act now to save humanity. Saving humanity as a whole is a decent Islamic value. The Holy Quran says, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. And whoever saves a life is as though he had saved all mankind. The whole concept of sustainable development is based on the ability to see the future clearly enough to plan and sustain resources, not only for this generation, but for the coming generations as well. Moral values help to balance the present versus the future. The lack of this balance is a significant factor behind the environmental threats humanity is facing today. The space dimension of sustainability is reflected in the collective action it requires. Curbing the climate crisis is a form of a prisoner dilemma game where cooperation is necessary to achieve optimal outcomes. Unfortunately, there is always the incentive for the few to deviate from the group to win short-term gains at the expense of the group. But if everyone follows the same strategy, everyone loses. Moral values are necessary to balance self-interest versus group interest. Islamic finance not only emphasizes moral values, but also specifies my financing mechanisms appropriate for sustainable development. To sustain development, financing mechanisms must be sustainable as well. For example, the prohibition of riba, which is a major principle of Islamic finance, is key for sustainable finance and therefore sustainable development. The essence of Islamic finance is that finance must be integrated with the real economy. We cannot make money out of money. We must participate in trade and production to earn profits. Interest-based lending decouples financing from the real economy, leading to the self-multiplication of debt. As debt grows faster than wealth, the burden of debt services puts enormous pressure on economic resources to catch up with the unbounded growth of debt. But this is a losing game because self-multiplied debt will necessarily outgrow the economy, no matter how hard people work or how fast they extract economic resources. This inevitably leads to crashes and depressions, resulting in yet another round of waste of resources. The prohibition of riba, therefore, is critical for sustaining economic resources. Another important mechanism for sustainable finance is awqaf. Waqf is a long-term strategy for philanthropic and social finance. It is a clear example of how to make charity sustainable throughout the ages. When it comes to actualization of the Sustainable Development Goals, the Islamic Development Bank Group is leading several initiatives to make these goals a reality. In particular, my colleagues at the ISDB Institute are exploring innovative strategies to revive the vital role of the institution of Waqf to address some of the most pressing challenges facing our member countries. Currently, laws and regulations of Waqf vary significantly across countries, creating serious obstacles to capitalizing on awqaf to play their role in sustainable development. On the other hand, there are abundant natural resources within our member countries that are waiting to be optimally utilized to support economic progress. A key initiative of our colleagues is proposing to combine the elements of awqaf, free zones, and modern technology to create awqaf-free zones in ISTB member countries. An awqaf-free zone is an area where awqaf assets can be created to enjoy protective status suitable to the nature and requirement for preserving awqaf assets. The awqaf-free zones will be dedicated to establishing food farms and energy stations to address food and energy security, unlock the potential of underutilized natural resources, and alleviate poverty in member countries. The output or revenue of these zones will be distributed according to a pre-agreed plan as stated in the Waqf deeds, with special incentives given to host countries. Resources for building the awqaf-free zones will be mobilized through blockchain-based global Waqf tokens that allow the contributors, the Waqfin, to monitor and verify the transactions of the Waqf assets and revenue. Moreover, blockchain technology will be used to create, manage, and store the awqaf deeds and contracts, which enables independent validation and transparency in the management of awqaf within the free zone. The zones would be also equipped with Internet of Things for maximum transparency and verifiability of the. We will be working closely with our member countries, development institutions, Islamic financial infrastructure institutions, together with other key players and stakeholders, to make this initiative a reality, inshallah. With this, I conclude my lecture today. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Dr. Sami Ibrahim, for explaining the clear linkages of this topic and making this apparently complicated subject very easy and understandable. Ladies and gentlemen, this program is being live streamed on State Bank's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, now I'll be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Irfan Siddiqui, the founding president and CEO of Mizan Bank, the largest Islamic bank in Pakistan. In his illustrious career, he held several senior positions. He's a chartered accountant by profession and a very well-respected professional among his colleagues, most of which are present here in the hall. I invite Mr. Irfan Siddiqui. Mr. Irfan Siddiqui.
Sorry, just let test this. Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before I start, let me thank both IFSB and the State Bank of Pakistan for providing this opportunity to me and Mizan Bank. I was asked to cover a little bit about Mizan Bank and about the sustainability goals as well. So honored to be here. I think both Dr. Billo and Dr. Sami has covered a lot of technical ground on the sustainability issue. Thank you so much for making my life a little easier. My first slide here is three photographs from the Pakistan flood, which, as we are all aware, recently we had one of the worst floods in Pakistan, in which nearly 2,000 people died, 12 to 15,000 people were injured, a lot of roads and bridges were all wiped out, housing, livestock, and obviously it became a big disaster. And the estimated loss, when you combine different things, there are different estimates, but it's estimated to be somewhere in the region of 35 billion US dollars. And as you are aware, Pakistan is obviously facing lot of crisis. And these days, even $1 billion and $2 billion or $3 billion mean a huge amount of money for Pakistan. So this $30 billion, seem to be like the seventh heaven. So if we are not careful in the future, we could be getting demand of similar $30 billion or $100 billion without having the resources to cope up with that. So what do? I mean, we can pray and hope for the best, but there are some actions required which are alluded by Dr. Sami as well. And these are the 16 SDGs which have been identified. And I'm sure everybody who here, like Dr. Saab said, that there have been many talks about this thing. But I have presented or tried to present in a little different perspective. The SDG number 1 and number 2 relates to poverty and hunger. I put them all together. If there's poverty, there will be hunger, so it's a combined thing. So in my view, that is the central problem which we need to eradicate or handle, whatever you want to call it. And after poverty is good health and well-being, which is the third sustainable development goal. And the fourth one is quality education. So what I really thought about it for the first time while preparing for this lecture, that these things are the basics for any society, any economy, any little community as well. And the responsibility for really eradicating poverty, providing good health and quality education, we should take it for granted that that should be a given thing in the economy. Obviously, we've seen because of different reasons, these four areas are not very well catered in countries like Pakistan and many other countries as well. Now, until we really get the hang of it, the fifth and the sixth and the seventh becomes far and far away. And in my view, quite frankly, I was reading the introduction of this thing today, and it said that to achieve the SDGs, we require an investment of 30 or 50 trillion dollars. I mean, an amount which I don't think any one of us can comprehend how big that amount is. But the reason why we need that kind of amount is because actually we are failing to address this particular issue, which is not too difficult, but provided that there's focus on it. So my fourth ring, what I put here, is financial inclusion, which is not part of our SDG squares or the boxes. And I feel once we have these things as given, eradicate poverty, health, education, and then we have the financial inclusion, then everything else fits in place without too much of a difficulty. So maybe the investment which you have mentioned of lots of trillions of dollars may not really be needed if these building blocks are correctly put in place. Obviously, the other blocks, just to put it there, is gender equality, water, affordable energy, decent work and economic growth, and industry innovation. And finally, is the peace, justice, and strong institutions. Once we do these kind of things, then the green circle, in my view, comes automatic. You'll have peace, justice, institution will be strong because there's no other way you can do it. Dr. Sami mentioned about some Quranic things and how things happen in there. If you see the Islamic, early part of the Islamic period, we do read a lot of places that, when people were going out to give sadaqah and zakat, there were no takers for that. So why was there no takers? Because there was no poverty, no hunger, right? And then everything can develop and build on that. In terms of education, this Islamic world was at one point in peak, and now we all know where it is. So I think if we really focus on the problem, I think the problem can be reduced to a smaller extent and probably implemented with much more ease than becomes an unsurmountable problem of how do we handle this thing. Now, financial inclusion, like I said, is the key. Once we've got the poverty and education and health under the belt, now financial inclusion is the key part where we really all come into play. And if you look at Pakistan's statistics, we have a population, mashallah, 230 million people, a lot more than what we see in this hall. And a lot of this is young population. And we have 190 mobile SIMs. Now, I'm sure the organizers must have put some restriction, otherwise you probably see 50 people talking to each other on the same. It's so prevalent. So we have 190 million SIMs, and the number of bank accounts, quite frankly, it's a shame for all of us. And I think once we recognize that, then we work on that. We have 67 million bank accounts out of 230 million people, which is 1/4, right? And even the worst thing is that out of the 67 million accounts, only 17 million are women bank accounts. So in terms of ratio and proportion, it's totally out. Although the population gender mix in Pakistan is roughly 50-50. So why such a low financial inclusion? I think the question which I asked myself in this presentation is that, we've been talking about financial inclusion. Every single meeting of State Bank of Pakistan, we do take this very seriously. And I go back to a study which was done by State Bank of Pakistan and DFID. DFID is the UK aid agency. So there was a combined study done by State Bank and DFID in which 10,000 households were surveyed. So and the result of that survey was that questions were asked that what was the willingness to switch to Islamic banking. And this was, like I said, 10 years ago when the awareness was much lower than what it is now. 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. And the answer was very surprising that 74% of the people said that they would switch to Islamic banking if they have an option, right? And only 9% people said that they will not. And 17% were not sure about it. So I'm pretty sure that out of this 17%, half of or 10% would probably in this last 8 years would have converted into blue. So that percentage would now be maybe 84% of people who are willing to switch to Islamic banking. The next slide is even more revealing. The question was asked, do you consider riba prohibited? And the answer, I couldn't imagine a number as high as this. Dr. Farooq is a director at the State Bank. He was responsible for doing this survey. So 94% of the people said that, yes, they consider riba as prohibited. Right? Again, a very high number. And again, a micro question of that is that out of those people, the question was asked that is the conventional bank interest, is it riba? Because we do hear a lot of people talking about that riba is something which was, in the Shylock Merchant of Venice, where you give one and you take 100. So maybe there's a lot of confusion in what is in the definition of riba. But I'm glad to let you know that when we started our bank in 1997 as an investment bank, people used to take a lot of time in asking us that how our deposit would be Islamic, how this thing would be Islamic, if we get a car on lease, how would that be Islamic? But now, alhamdulillah, with that passage of time and education, those queries have, I think, gone down to maximum of 10%. So people now understand that what is riba and what is not riba. And so, with such a strong mindset, there is no surprise that the Islamic banks in Pakistan are growing at double the volume as a conventional bank, as a good conventional bank. So really, I think the financial inclusion which we really want is the Islamic financial inclusion. So my case here for respected Jamil Sahab is that when we talk about financial inclusion, we should focus on Islamic financial inclusion. And now with the court in Pakistan declaring that in the next 5 years we have to go into more Islamic, whether it concludes that way or not, I think people are now trying to follow that path. So more and more customers are now demanding. So if the customer demand is there, I'm saying one minute we forget about whether we believe in it or not, but if the customer demand is there, that is where the business will be. And the good thing in Pakistan is that every single bank in Pakistan has got an Islamic bank. Every single one, except one which because they own a Islamic bank. So everybody is equipped with Islamic bank. They have their Sharia board. They have a head of Sharia department, Islamic banking head. So really for them to make that window bigger and bigger and bigger is very easy. I mean, if it wasn't there, then we would have had a lot of difficulty. But considering that the infrastructure is already present in all the banks in Pakistan, I think our transformation can become faster and easier as well. Right. The share of Islamic banking when we started in 2001 obviously was 0% at that time, and 2022 now it's 21%. So mashallah, it's a good progress, and the progress is now more than in the initial years. In the initial years it was slower. So I think with this kind of a pace, it can go much higher. And the State Bank has got a vision 2025, they call it, in which the State Bank feels that the Islamic banking industry should be at least 30% of the total banking sector. And like I mentioned before, that the Sharia court has given a judgment to fully convert riba free by 2027, which is 5 more years, and the State Bank 30% is after 2 years. So in my view, I think by 2027, we should see at least 60 to 70% of the local economy transforming it into Sharia compliant. Because there are two basic issues in Pakistan. One is the local rupee borrowing of needs of corporates and the government. And internationally, there's a dollar requirement as well. So the case I'm making here is again very little controversial or whatever. So in my view, forget about the legal system, forget about whether the jury state, the courts declare it or not. But I think because the public demand is there, inshallah, I see the local economy going from 20% to maybe 60 or 70% over a 5-year period. Because the customer would get their banks to give more riba-free business. And on the international side, I also feel that would be very difficult process. Not as easy as the court thinking that it can be done tomorrow. So it will be a gradual process. But the silver lining on that is what I put here, RDA, for our friends who visiting Pakistan from outside. RDA is the Russian digital account, which was launched by the State Bank of Pakistan and Government of Pakistan, in which we were encouraging overseas Pakistanis to send dollar savings into Pakistan, as opposed to dollar remittance for just the need basis. We are encouraging people to invest in Pakistan. And Alhamdulillah, we managed to get $5.5 billion on this account, which is more than direct investment coming into Pakistan. And out of that RDA balance, Mizan Bank is one of the 14 banks in that system. And we have a 25% market share. We have no branches outside Pakistan. We have no rep office. We don't have any person sitting outside Pakistan. So the question is that why Mizan Bank? Mizan Bank was the only bank initially in the RDA which was Islamic. The reason why there was this strong flow of money into Mizan Bank was because our overseas Pakistanis brothers and sisters wanted to keep their savings into a Sharia compliant methodology, which we never thought that way when we started this business of RDA. But just the mere flow into Islamic is not a testimony for that Mizan Bank did a great job. I think it's because Mizan was a bank which was providing a Sharia compliant product. So that shows how the pull factor is in Islamic bank. And I think we need to, which we are all doing, increase our focus on export. And personally, I feel if we do all of this, then the need for foreign currency will diminish. So the problem which is looking very big right now, because we need a lot of money, foreign currency money, I think if we put our house in order, our need for foreign currency funding would all, automatically go down. So the equation would automatically balance. So if we have a very small funding requirement in foreign currency and the bulk of it is in local currency, then I think getting into 100% Sharia compliant wouldn't be as difficult as we are envisaging right now. And above all, this bulb on the bottom, I feel that what I've seen in Mizan Bank is we definitely work hard, but that's not what is reflecting in Mizan Bank. Mizan Bank, we see barakat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because our objective is right and our intent is right. And that barakat is something which is not quantified. So Mizan Bank completed 25 years, and because Samar Sahib asked me to take you through the journey of Mizan Bank as well, so it's not a marketing trip. So we've completed 25 years this year. In 1997, we started as a small investment bank, which was called Al Mizan Investment Bank. 2002, we got a God-gifted opportunity of acquiring 4 branches of Society General, who is operating in Pakistan. They wanted an exit, and we acquired that. In process, we got the license, and we became Mizan Bank Limited. Now, again, I would highlight one thing, that when we were selecting the name of our investment bank, and when we converted this into a commercial bank, we did not call it Mizan Islamic Bank Limited. We did not call it Al Mizan Islamic Investment Bank. And the reason was simply that even at that time, my own thinking was that if we're doing it with a purpose and a vision and a commitment because of faith reasons, that in Pakistan, banking has to be Islamic. I mean, why you call it, Coca-Cola, clean Coca-Cola, germs-free Coca-Cola. I mean, this Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. You don't need to say that it's clean, it's pure, it's, whatever. So if it's banking in an Islamic state, why do you need to say Islamic? I mean, you have to assume that it is Islamic. You go to a butcher shop in Pakistan, he doesn't say halal butcher. In England, butcher would have a halal board on it, but in Pakistan, it doesn't. So there should not be a need to put Islamic. But I think once our mindset is there, then the conversion to the Islamic system would be that much easier. Dr. Ishrat gave us the license in 2002. Sorry, the heading is wrong. And he encouraged us that, we should open more and more branches. At that time, we thought that in long term, we would open 20 branches. But mashallah, today we have more than 920 branches. And from the smallest bank in 2002, mashallah, we are now the 4th largest in terms of deposit, 3rd largest in financing, number 1 in market capitalization, and number 1 in Russian digital crowd. Just few slides to show how steep our journey was. I won't spend too much time on that. This was our branch network. We are in 308 cities of Pakistan, close to 1,000 branches. Deposit is growing at an average of about 35%. Like I said, twice the conventional banking rate. Trade business, which we never thought we'll be able to do easily in Sharia compliant financing, but mashallah, we have about 10 to 12% of Pakistan's total trade business done at Mizan. So about 2 trillion rupees worth of trade. Our return on equity, I think again that element of barakat, it is the highest in the country, which is this year is about 40-45%, I think. And we have 14,000 regular staff members and 4,000 outsourced security guards and all that. So alhamdulillah, that is also a big thing that we are providing. That thing. We are the only bank to acquire 3 foreign banks, although they were very, very small. So our size is not because of the acquisition. So we started our journey with acquisition of Society General with 4 branches, HSBC Pakistan, 10 branches, and HSBC Oman, Affluent Oman is here, of 1 branch. So in total, we acquired 15 branches, but that gave us the intellectual capital and know-how of commercial banking. I've mentioned this before that RDA was over $5 billion as of September. Mashallah, Mizan was 1.2 billion out of that. In terms of Hajj application is, where you really go and deposit your money with a form, with a government prescribed form into any bank. Right? Without advertising, Mizan Bank's number of Hajj applications was the highest. Now again, what does that say? That shows that people preference toward Islamic finance. I mean, the transaction of depositing an Hajj application doesn't make it riba or no riba, but the preference is a very clear indicator. So the factors which I feel were contributing to Mizan's story, obviously first and foremost is Allah's barakat and blessings on the bank because of the purpose and vision. But our vision statement, when we were, like I said, when we were Al Mizan Investment Bank, when we had a staff of 9 people in all, we developed this vision statement which reads, establish Islamic banking as banking of first choice. Now, as you know, that as an investment bank, you're not allowed to open branches, you're not allowed to open current accounts, no saving accounts, no foreign exchange trade, no LCs, nothing. But this vision statement was done at that time when we were nothing, right? So I think that, in my view, this was divine, because God wanted us to do something. And Alhamdulillah, with their acquisition of SG and getting a license, now, mashallah, we have created that impact of establishing Islamic banking as banking. People are coming to Islamic banking. And as a result, Alhamdulillah, 17 banks in Pakistan, which probably is 100% of the spectrum, they have Islamic banking branches within them. And the next important thing which we developed were our core values, with basically we really to take a lot of care of these core values. So they're not like a poster in the wall. It's basically Sharia compliance, which is obviously first and foremost for an Islamic bank. You can do, if it's not there, then there's nothing. The number 2, which is part of our Islamic value system, is integrity. And the third is service excellence, which also comes from Islamic values, because in Quran it says that whatever you do it in SN manner. So, when you do in SN, you provide that service quality which is SN, whether it's a small customer or a very large customer. In terms of recognitions, Alhamdulillah, we've got a lot of awards. We got 2018 and 2020, we had the Best Bank Award by Pakistan Banking Awards, which is under State Bank's direct guidance. Then last week, we got the Best Consumer Bank in Pakistan Award. And the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA Pakistan, for the last 3 years, they've been giving us the Best Bank Award in the large bank category. And there was a time when we were so tiny that we couldn't even call ourselves small banks. But Alhamdulillah, now in a large bank category, we've got the Best Bank. And our rating among the new banks, we're the only bank to get that AAA rating. And obviously, there are a lot of global awards from IFN, Asian Banker, Global Finance, Pakistan Stock Exchange, with the top 25 companies. So again, concluding to that different presentation of these things, that I think if we really work on Islamic finance, it can give us solutions to address our issues which are causing floods, which are causing problems. And inshallah, without even considering this as a big problem, we could probably overcome it much easily. The root causes for destruction of SDGs, again, from our religion, these are extravagance, wastefulness, and greed. These are all areas which you see every day. You see it in our lives that we do waste, like Dr. Sami mentioned about the 2 non-convergence. And there's a hadith that if you're doing wuzu or washing your face or whatever, and even if you're doing that wuzu from a running river, it says that do not waste water even if you are at a running speed. So what does it mean? I mean, water is in abundance there, but even for that, doing that thing, don't waste that water. In terms of what Mizan Bank has done towards the SDGs, I think, mashallah, in terms of effort, on the hunger side, we did whatever it's, whether it's distribution of food or rations, especially after the flood. In terms of health, we set up 4 COVID vaccination centers, and one of them was the largest mobile centers in Pakistan, which is reported downstairs. It had 8 lanes of cars, so you were sitting in the car and you could get your vaccination done. That was sponsored by Imran Bhai. This is a very important thing for us. Like I said, those 4 initial pyramids, the interest-free loan at zero